Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan Lessard. I'll be talking to you about Blabber, the accessible text generation plugin we made for Unity, and that's freely accessible to you, so might be of use. The context for this, for the development of this plugin is that we're working on a project called Chroniqueur, and it's a completely procedurally generated world and generated characters. And it communicates most of its content through text. And so we can't have canned text or pre-written text because the context is always changing. So we needed an easy tool to author for generative and adaptative text. And easy is important. I didn't want to have programmers, to require programmers for this, just as any author or narrative designers could do this. So this is what it looks like currently. This is a generated map, generated little painting there. But also all the interaction is through generated text. So you have to imagine something like a Twine project that auto-generates itself in a sense. And the other particularity is that every entity of the world is completely self-documented through a sort of Wikipedia. And so all this, of course, requires the text generation and templates. So for example, what do I mean by adaptative text? Let's say I'm presenting a character to the player, and of course in advance we don't know what that character's name will be, what the relationship of that character will be to the player. So we can't write just "This is Susan, your dear friend. She currently is doing fine," because it might be "This is Steve, just an acquaintance of yours. He currently seems depressed." Or "This is Linda, your worst enemy. She currently is on the verge of collapse." In red there is the part of the text that needs to be adapted against the specific circumstances. So I present to you Blabber. So that's the tool we designed, and its main criteria are that it's generative, meaning that the same script can output variations, but it's also adaptative, meaning that it will only generate according to certain criteria. So if I'm talking about an old character, I won't say that they're young. It's something like that. And it's accessible. So this is more from a development point of view, but I want this to move quickly and doesn't require a lot of training. And I just wanted to mention that this is inspired by Kate Compton's tracery. So it's in the trajectory or in the legacy of context-free grammars. And then James Ryan's expressionist, which was also an interpretation of tracery, which added a more like a control over the flow of a generation. In a sense, we're picking up these ideas and just even simplifying a little bit and implementing into Unity. So these criteria, when I say it's generative, it mostly means that it can do random picks within your structure. And then the other thing is that these random picks can be recursive. So let me show you what that can look like. So things happen just in a simple text editor. Here, this is Sublime Text. We've created a little syntax highlighting for it. So for example, if I wanted to present that character, this would be the starting point, simply like that. And hey, Susan, you are looking good. Okay, so that's our basic line. But maybe we want to be able to vary this, and so maybe there are possibly variations to what this can be. So I don't know, looking good now is a symbol. Oops. And we can unpack it. So looking good, so you are looking good. I mean, that's looking food still works. With a semicolon here, I can just provide alternative. You are looking great, or you are, let's say, beaming. I don't know if that's something you can say. Stuff like that. So that's all there is to it. When Unity is going to make a request to Blabber, it will write this out and then look at this, go here and pick one of these, and that's it. And when I say that it's recursive, is that you can put non-terminal symbols within non-terminal symbols. So for example, looking great, we can add maybe an adverb here. And so we could say, here, looking really great, positively great. You get the point. So that's how it works. Okay, so going back to my PowerPoint. So that's the generative aspect, and it seems simple, but with just this mechanism, you can really write quickly grammars that will will offer a lot of variation. So, for example, our own author, our main author with Blabber is called Leonardo Abate, and he's a non-programmer, and yet he quickly picked up on this and has a lot of fun. For example, he made a generator that describes a grammar that describes or invents the description of one of the creatures in this world. And so these are just a few outputs from the same grammar. So the spoogle is a green-plumed elephantine of mischievous tendency, well known for their bone product. But the same grammar can also output the spoogle is an average-size, bizarre critter of exuberant disposition. The spoogle is a red, long-necked quadruped, used mainly as a draft animal. Their main mean of sustenance is fruit. So this grammar is just a bunch of alternatives and embedded alternatives within a description, and you can get a lot of flavor out of it. So that's the primary thing, but this is basically what Tracery was doing. What was needed then is have to have a bit more control, because let's say I'm describing this creature, but maybe it's important that this specific creature is of a small size or a big size. And so in my grammar, I can control that flow a little. So there are two main things you can do, which is enough for at least for most of what we need, is you can make some conditional flow. So as you're unpacking one of the non-terminal symbols, you might block some paths depending on some variables you're passing to Blabber. And you can also expose variables as is. So for example, here, just going back to my editor, maybe we don't know if Susan is looking good or not. Maybe she's in a poor state or in a bad state. So let's not predefine this. We'll just create another non-terminal status. And this status might be dependent on her current health. So, and this is a new thing of the syntax. You can make a condition before any finalized phrase. So here, let's say this is the NPC that health is greater than 50, for example. Then we'll go towards looking good. However, if that NPC's health is lower, and you can have as many outputs as possible as necessary. So let's say now you could have another one looking bad. So, hey Susan, or maybe you look like you need a rest. Or something like that. And then here I would need to have my verbs. Here. So see what happens here. If the health is good, it will go here. If health is bad, it will go there. And you can even have some default ones. You are there, maybe. This one doesn't need a qualification. It can pop in any conditions. So that's how you can control the flow. You have different operators, greater than, equals. You can even equal strings. So for example, if it's a type of person, if this NPC is considered a friend, then something happens. It's all open to you. You can have also multiple conditions. So you could have, for example, is greater than 50 and is lower than 150 or something like that, depending on your scale. So that's the main thing. You can control the flow by just creating conditions in front of stuff. But the other thing is you can expose variables as is. So for example, maybe here we don't know that the character's name is called Susan. And so we could just say npc.name. Of course, these variables need to be passed to Blabber, but that's a relatively simple process. And also you can make Blabber objects. So in this case, there will be just one object called an NPC with many variables exposed to Blabber that Blabber can look at. So here this, when this request is made to Blabber, this will only be simply be replaced by the string that's in the variable. And then this will be considered as a number and to make the comparison. You can also expose numbers. For example, we could exactly say you look like you have npc.health points right now. So then like you would just get the number. So that's it. And just with this, you have a surprising amount of control on whatever you want to output here. So, and the last thing is that it's accessible. As you can see, the syntax is simple. Within 30 minutes, I think somebody can get up and going. Simple text files, which is useful because for source control, for example, spell checking and all that, you don't need to have a fancy editor. You can just use the tools that you want to use usually. It's also very appropriate for translation because different languages have different ways of maybe dealing with gender, for example, or conjugations and things like that. So you can just replace all of those, make conditions, and it can happen at the Blabber level. And it's a simple Unity package that you could just install. I've made a basic tutorial on the website that you can follow if you want to integrate this, and within 30 minutes you'll be going. So, and it's free. We did this in the context of a research project, so it's out there and you can get it. So that's it. So here's the website for the source and tutorial. If you want to follow news for this project, these are the Twitter accounts. And yeah, if don't hesitate if you have questions, even down the line if you're using it and you wonder, hey, can I do this, or how does this work, or whatever, just ask us. We'd be happy to find out that people are doing stuff with it. Okay, thanks, and I'll be there for questions. Bye-bye.